might have been buried too deep just a little bit. And over time, it was from all the needles that have fallen out of, So that's another thing too. If you have a pine tree or a evergreen tree that sheds a lot of needles, it's going to slowly over time start covering its own trunk. So we have to come in and kind of pull that away. It acts as its own suffocator. So not always great. So what I'll do at this one is come in here and just make a nice cut up against there. Root pruning is kind of the same thing as, I mean, obviously we're not root pruning for aesthetics. It's not a bonsai, but root pruning is the same idea as like canopy pruning, where you only want to take like a third of the tree's overall growth and foliage. You don't want to take more than a third of the tree's overall roots. And that includes trunk, root flare. So you can actually root prune a root flare if you absolutely have to. Like say it's bulging out into your grass and you're hitting it with your mower. We could take that whole root like all the way off and the tree will heal, but that would be the only amount of root pruning we could do to the tree like at that time. So these evergreens grow a lot more vigorous roots. You can see you want to look for white roots or kind of lighter colored roots. That's a sign they're still alive. And these ones over here, let me try to find some dead ones. Yeah, like this root right here. It's just falling apart and crumbling. Oh. So it had a little bit of new growth on one of the tips, but I think that was from a different root. So you can find these dead, dark, kind of dark brown roots in there. That's just a sign it's root bound. It needs to be put into some new soil. So we'll find that a lot where, say, a tree or a plant's been in a pot for so long, it ends up just all the roots die, and then there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to hopefully save the tree by putting it in fresh soil. So this one's got real long roots. So what I'm going to do with it is just kind of start working it and see what we have at the bottom. So I'll pull these edges away like this. And you can kind of see it's just like I was talking about earlier, it's like giving it a massage. And we're just trying to get these roots to fan out here. So yeah, get them all untangled. And because like when this tree, say we planted in the ground and I didn't tease all those roots are going to continue to grow like this down in the ground, and then the tree's going to get too big and its roots never established in the outward direction, so the tree will fall over, or a lot of different stuff can happen in that sense because it never grew roots out away from itself. So that's another thing. When putting them into the ground, you want to make sure you dig a hole that's big enough to where your roots aren't tucked underneath the tree when you put it in there. You want to fan it out, so, and not like, I get asked, hey, do you want to plant a tree with an auger? Don't use an auger. You want to use a shovel, because you're better off digging a hole a little too shallow and then compensating with wood chips versus putting it in there too deep and then it settles. So you can see I'm starting to get it all loose in here. This is one I transplant into a pot every 3 years. So it's been done a couple times. Not usually. Yeah, not the last couple years. Yeah, I just put fresh soil in it. That way it can grow new roots, because you can see I'm running into some dead spots. So it really is just to freshen up the soil. And, it's kind of like when we quit eating nutrients, we start getting diseases. That's another thing too. Like, even though it's in a pot and I put it in fresh potting soil 3 years ago, it still needs like nutrients, because they deplete over time. So So right here, see what I'm working with? I don't really love that root. It's kind of doing some funky stuff. So I'm going to try to find where the bottom, see this bottom root is actually over here. Yeah, so it's really just trying to untangle these roots from each other and give them room to breathe in here, you know? It's like a pair of dreads that hasn't been maintained for way too long, you know? You're going to find a whole ecosystem of stuff in here, you know? But yeah, you can see now, I mean, we're starting to get down in here to these old dead, like some of them are alive, but the tips are starting to die. See how the tip's all dead out here? But it's alive back here. Yeah, exactly. Right where my finger is. So that's kind of what I look for, is stuff like that. And it's just not getting oxygen anymore, so it starts dying off, so I'll cut it back. And then it can grow new roots. It's kind of like a dead branch that never gets cut off. It's not going to grow new branches until it gets cut back to the receptor that says grow new branches. So yeah, so this root right here, I'm going to take it back. And it's kind of like just trying to get everything fanning back down, you know. See all these dead roots on the bottom interior that are just falling out, you know, so that's going to give it room for new dirt to basically start, you know, growing all these new roots right in here.
Not like that. Smaller.
Yeah, it'll stunt its growth, and then also too, every time we come in here and like trim the roots like this and pull the dead roots out, you know, the tree grows its canopy based off of how many roots it has to store nutrients. So if we can root prune it, it's going to actually keep this tree smaller and thicker. You know, this tree is actually about 12 years old, surprisingly, wow. Because it's been in a pot since it was, you know, a seedling. So yeah, I mean, when you look at the trunk wood, I mean, that's how bonsais are made, is they actually only trim the roots. Every year they go in and take a third of the roots out, so it gets smaller and smaller. So you can, yep, so same idea as like with this Monrovia pot, I'll come in and I'll fill in the bottom with just, you know, a lot of the times with these ceramic pots, they've got bigger holes. So we'll put, I mean, I'll take something like this and just throw it at the bottom to help keep that dirt compacted and stopping from falling through those holes. You can use wire, you can, yeah, rock, yeah. Yeah, the cuttings, yeah. So I'll just throw a couple of those in there at the bottom, and I mean, they just decompose as time goes on. So like this tree, before I trimmed it, was growing like kind of more lopsided. Oh yeah, it's because it was right up against my house. Oh, so the sunlight was, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what I'll do in that case is when I bring it home, I'll just rotate it. Then I'll put this side against my house. So yeah, so it starts reacting in the right way.
You got
so.
some good mycelium in here? I thought that's what I saw.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so you can see the mycelium webbing in there.
So that's good, healthy soil.
Absolutely.
You want to keep that with your roots. I was wondering if you were going to take all of that.
No, yeah, I try to leave as much as I can just because, I mean, you can see there's some good form in there, but even these little like strands will be just enough to start a new inoculation. Oh, yeah. Yeah, as long as we have good soil, you know, so. But yeah,
that's something that's really changed. It used to be all about sterile soil and everything. And I get
yeah,
not transferring fungus, but now we know that there's
there's a
so much
good
more
beneficial.
relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too, like smelling it.
Yeah.
I mean, it smells
Got
like
that
the
good dirt.
forest,
Yes.
So that's another thing too. Like when you go out and you smell the forest, it smells so earthy and compositional, where that's what you want to kind of recreate in the pots if we can. So that's potting soil's not always the best stuff to use, but for longevity, as long as you're doing it every couple years, that's what's going to make or break the tree's ability to create that natural mycelium. So yeah, you kind of freshen it up, then it gives this bacteria some new
Yes, yeah, middle ground
food.
too.
And yeah,
But you
exactly.
don't want to like take it and rinse this aggressively under the hose and put
No,
them in brand new, just naked
soil. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. You want to keep some of that. I was interested to
absolutely.
see
Yeah,
if you agreed
I
with that.
absolutely agree. Whenever I see white mycelium matting, I love it. I mean, it makes me very happy because, especially in a potted tree, you don't always
You don't
yeah,
always get
you
it.
don't always see it. But I think too, like I was saying, this tree's about 12 years old, so it's getting to that point where it's like, hey, I need phosphorus, I need calcium and magnesium and all these micronutrients, and the only way to get that is through fungus.
Yeah, it
So
won't uptake without the mycelium.
exactly.
Right.
So it's doing really what it should be, is what it shows me as someone understanding about trees.
Nice healthy green. I mean, it's got no shed. I don't, I know
Right,
you just freshly trimmed it, but nice
right.
conical.
But even, I mean, look at all the, there's
new
no
growth.
there's
Yeah,
no
no
brown. Yeah,
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 no red tipping.
yeah. So
Is it okay if I water this guy in?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably about ready for it. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is pretty much the same thing with that Monrovia plant, is put a little bit of potting soil and steer manure in the bottom of the pot. Yeah, see, even someone who works at a nursery and plants, replanting pots all the time, there are little tips and tricks that I feel like I can bring to the table. That's awesome. That's where it all starts, is in the backyard. Right. So glad the breeze came in, man. It was getting so hot for a minute. I mean, I'm only human. We only sweat, but goodness gracious. First sunny day in a greenhouse. I'm just sprinkling in a little bit of steer manure at the base and getting that worked in. So really, when I put it back in here, I just want to make sure that it's not sending any roots up. Yeah.
Putting it in.
Exactly. So I'm going to try to just drape it down in here. And I'm really just looking to see where, yeah, I don't have enough in the bottom. Same deal with these ceramic pots, I'll show you. They have a good indicator that usually wherever the paint line ends is where you want to leave the dirt, right below that paint line. Sometimes you can't put trees back into the same size pot. It just doesn't work out. Especially if they've been root bound for, say, 5 years in one pot. We might not even be able to get it out of a ceramic pot without breaking it. So that's another issue we run into too, where like it may have been in the ceramic pot for so long, those roots that were just starting to grow against the edge get so matted that you end up not having any dirt left. You have just roots, and it's like trying to pull a brick of roots. Yep, exactly. Which is no fun. Absolutely. Which is another thing too, that where how do you get it out of the ground once it's rooted itself into the ground through, yeah, through the pot, you know.
It's kind of like, okay, yes, but I'm just pot to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at that point, I would usually tip the pot over and cut, and then just try to tease the roots that were in the pot. And if I'm going to put it back in a pot, I would just try to get it back down to the bare minimum root ball that I'd be comfortable with leaving it at, you know. So I mean, this tree actually, considering it's been in this pot for 3 years, it didn't have as many roots as I thought it would, you know. But I think a lot of what that has to do with is I wasn't keeping it super watered during the droughts. It's a pine, so it's like it can be fine through some droughts, you know, whereas other trees maybe wouldn't. So I think that's just shows me like, okay, maybe I wasn't watering it enough during the summer. No, this is actually a black pine. Yep. Mm-mm. No, that's why when I had been asked, hey, do you want this little black pine? My buddy had gotten it from a lady he was working for. And I'm like, same thing. I said the same thing. I don't really come across black pines very often. And even when you put them in the ground, they don't get too big. They stay.
No, they're kind of a scrub. I'm thinking more like Colorado.
Right, right.
And they're
Yeah, the lower.
not your big conical.
Exactly. They're the lower, more character kind of
Kind of
trees.
scrub pine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so when I had the opportunity to adopt it, and that was say 5 years ago, I mean it's been, this will be the third repotting, yeah, in this pot. So, and
That's why you've got so many kind of branches.
yeah, all the structure, and yeah, you can really, like, once you understand, okay, gosh, this tree's say 12 years old, you really start to see the old growth it has and the structure too, because I mean it wouldn't be able to develop this diameter and these branches in
Or
two,
that
three.
openness unless you were pruning it.
Yeah,
a
training
lot.
it. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I was interested in like the Doug fir that wants to go up, and then you like
yeah, and then tried to.
bladed it and pruned it to where it fanned.
Yeah, fanned, exactly. And I might even, I was looking at the tops, you know, because we have, say, like if it was missing this top, you can see what I'm seeing, right? Like, yeah, there's still four right here, and it still has balance right up here. So I was even thinking of coming in here and, you know, trying to give it some more balance right here, because this is starting to take up as it wants to be a main top, you know. So exactly. So all right.
Okay, so the water's on.
Okay.
Front hose.
Okay.
Not the back. You'll see it.
Awesome.
You got it.
Sweet. Thanks,
Yeah.
Emerald.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I wish I brought my soil scooper. I didn't think of it. Just kind of working a little bit of compost and soil in here. She's gonna be so happy after it's all repotted, fresh soil.
Kind of seeing a relation between do a little root pruning.
Yeah, root pruning and pruning a lot of the times is
Go hand in hand.
is hand in hand. I mean, when I plant a tree, I usually trim it
Yeah.
at the same time, you know. So not only would I root trim it, I would, like, just before I trim the roots on this tree, I trimmed the branches.
Yeah, little branch.
Exactly. Trying to just give it a little less energy to have to send up to the upper canopy. So
Start growing where you're trying to aim for the growth to go to.
exactly. So, but yeah, that wraps it up. How to plant a tree. Heck yeah. We're done. Could even maybe bring the camera over and get an after shot of just the fully repotted tree.